What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Elliot and this is MovieFiles. We are back discussing the White Lotus Season 2 Episode 4, which was titled The Sandbox, an episode in which we see some characters playing in the sandbox and having a good time and getting very intimate, while others sit outside just watching them having fun. We'll be discussing that and so much more in today's spoiler breakdown review. But before we get into it, if you all haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. That way you can stay up to date with all my White Lotus content. You can also give your boy a follow on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. All those links can be found in the description of this very video. Which, speaking of this video, if you all enjoyed today's review, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up, as well as sharing this review to anyone and everyone you know that loves this show just as much as we do. But more importantly, leaving your thoughts on this fourth episode in the comments below. I'll be honest with you all, there wasn't as much substance in this episode as the previous episodes, but we'll talk about some things happening. Some people may be dying and other people might be dying soon. And of course, Harper not talking to Ethan. But let me know your pros, your cons, deeper meanings of what you all took away from this episode. And what do you all think will happen next in the comments below? With all that being said, let's get into this week's breakdown. Full spoilers ahead. As we open the episode with saying good morning to Cameron and Lucia and Mia, who we see Harper calling Ethan, but this time he actually picks up the phone and immediately keeps the truth from what happened to his wife and just mentions that they had a large amount of alcohol and that was it. So again, let's talk about them, man, because their relationship, Harper definitely can tell that something's off. And throughout this episode, Harper, say something, right? Why aren't you just approaching him? We all know Ethan didn't have sex with Lucia or Mia, but still he was in the room, but he could have just been like, hey, this is what happened. I got a little drunk while Cameron was doing some things, right? But she might not. Again, we don't know if this has happened before. I don't think this has happened to Ethan before, so it's all kind of new territory for them. But I just couldn't bear to understand why she didn't ask him what happened the night before, which is a question I have for you all. Should Ethan have told her what happened? Again, he didn't cheat on her, but he obviously knew what happened with Cameron and obviously their night out. Or should he just keep it to himself, stay out of the business? He didn't have sex, but does he have to tell his wife what happened? I'm torn, guys. Let me know your thoughts on that. But as that's going on, meanwhile, time to pay up for the night of activities, as Cameron only has $1,800 on him and he promises to pay them on Friday, which I know some of you all mentioned in the comments last week. Do we feel as though Cameron and Daphne not only put on the front for their relationship being so perfect, but maybe financially they're not as stable as they make it out to be? I think financially they're fine. I literally think he just only had $1,800 in cash on him, and they probably do Venmo and Cash App or crypto. He probably doesn't carry as much cash on him as some people might, but some of you all might be onto something as far as their finances not being as fluid as they're making out to be, even though they're at this hotel, they're buying things to wear, and we see his wife is buying this rental place, which I'm pretty sure wasn't cheap. So I think their finances are pretty fine. But if I was Lucia, I'd be like, homie, you need to go to the ATM and give me my full amount, which I don't know how much it costs to hang out with them and to do what they did. But let me know what you all thought about that. And if you were Lucia, would you have made him pay up right then and there? Let's talk about it in the comments. But let's pivot over to Valentina, who makes sure to let Isabella know that she appreciated what she told her last week, but also she checks in with Isabella and says, are you okay with Rocco? I know he's always talking to you. Does he make you uncomfortable? And she's like, no, we're just, he's just being nice and having friendly talk to me. So we go back to last week's question when I said to you all, I like how the show's slowly giving us the layers of Valentina, but this episode poses a couple questions. Number one, did something happen to her with Rocco or another man in general that makes her feel like when a man talks to a woman, it's immediately red flag, something's going on there? Or, which I think it's pretty much answered later in the episode, she has a thing for Isabella. And I was talking about it weeks ago in episode 1, the lack of comparison between Armand, who was the manager of the White Lotus in season 1, and how different he is from Valentina. And one of their common things that they now have is, we know with Armand, who's seen season 1, that he hooked up with one of his employees, and it seems like Valentina might do the same with Isabella. Now, I don't know if that feeling is mutual, and we'll see where that goes, but I'm very intrigued to see where this angle goes, because you'll notice not only was she being nice, but she was smiling, which we haven't seen her do much besides smiling towards the guests. She was having small talk with someone at work, of all places, which we know she forbids that. She looks down upon people that do that. And also notice Valentina's swagger in her clothes. Not that she's been looking horrible at work, but this is a more vibrant outfit. And again, a much different personality, because now she's like, wait a minute, someone's noticed me. I noticed them, and she wants to see where it goes. But I'm very surprised that she's taking these measurements to flirt or try to see where Isabella is, if she's attracted to her, because we know that Valentina seems to be so gun-ho on work, and probably someone that is very reading the rule book, sticking to the rule book. So I'm very surprised that she is taking this route, if this is the route that we're going to end up finding out. But I was very surprised by the angle. Let me know what you all thought about that in the comments below. But as we're pivoting over to what's going on with Dom, who doesn't have a lot to do in this episode, he buys jewelry for his wife and thinks that that's a way to get back to the good graces with his wife and also his daughter, which Albie checks him on that later. But that's kind of his main thing, and I'm very curious. I mean, he's sticking to the plan. He hasn't slept with any woman. He's, looking at websites to keep himself entertained. So far, is looking to make that change, but I wonder how much it's going to last. But let's talk about breakfast time as we pivot over to Portia and what's going on with Albie, who Portia mentions that she knows she's on the clock, but she wants to hang out with Albie for the day, but needs Tanya's permission first. And the thing that Tanya says to her is just like, she's so oblivious to just like what's going on outside of her own life. She tells her, hey, can I hang out? And the first thing Tanya says is,
I don't know what's going on with Greg, but I think it's bullshit.
Tanya, did you just completely ignored everything this girl has told you, which is just so crazy. And again, we'll talk about Tanya and her just maybe leaving Greg to the side, at least for now, because she's found some new friends. But speaking of new friends, they run into Quentin, who we briefly met in last week's episode, who was eyeing Tanya at the bar as he compliments her on her look and he invites her to the boat. So we'll get into Quentin and his story, which might be some foreshadowing for some other characters a little bit later, as we go into checking in with Mia and Lucia, who are at this point outside and are freezing and using towels to keep themselves warm. As we see, Lucia doesn't feel good about herself and she can't be living like this much longer. And you'll notice the line she tells Mia. She says,
Per colpa mia verremo punite entrambe.
Punite? Ma che dici, Lucia?
Mia, tutte le puttane vengono punite alla fine.
I think that line not only is foreshadowing for maybe something later on, but we see some punishment going down in this very episode. And we'll get to some of the little Easter eggs that I caught a little bit later. But that line to me, circle that word punishment, because I think there might be something coming for either both of them or one of them a little bit later. But we'll talk about that when we get to that scene in the church. But as we see, Mia, remember y'all, she has the key to Bert's room as she suggests they go and take a shower, which we see them run into Bert and he just laughs at all. But he brings it up a little bit later in the episode. But going back into what's going on with Cameron and Ethan, who are going to be sticking to the bro code, as we transition to what's going on with the girl code, as we see Daphne has trouble with keeping female friends, and Harper tells her, I promise I won't tell you tell our husbands or tell my husband what went down and the truth you told me on our little night stay. So at first I'm like, I wonder how, the question I was going to ask you all, as I has in my notes to the audience, who's going to break code first? Is it going to be the men or the women? And particularly, is it going to be Ethan or Harper? Well, I already had my money on Harper breaking pretty quickly, which she does later, but just pretend we don't know what happens and let me know, did you think Harper was going to break first, or did you think Ethan was going to be the one to approach his wife and say, listen, honey, when they first met up, this is what happened? Let me know what you thought about that in the comments. But as we go to welcoming to the beach club, as Tanya and Portia are met by Quentin's new friends, including his nephew, Jack, who you all remember was the kid in the pool last week with the sensitive nipples, as Albie arrives and sees Portia smiling and drinking with Jack. And remember, y'all, good guys never finish first. He always finished last, and particularly with what we learned from Albie and his past relationships, that he always tends to be the good guy in the relationship, and the girls unfortunately do him dirty. And we talk, it gets dirty in this episode and it gets pretty hot and steamy, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But going into the title of this episode, which happened to be Sandbox, this is where Jack tells her we can have fun in the sandbox, being very flirty while she's enjoying herself. And this is exactly what she wanted. Y'all remember in episode 1 when she was on the phone?
Don't worry about her.
Get thrown around by some hot Italian guy and
kind of pouring her heart out to her friend on the phone that she just wants to have fun. As we see, Quentin tells Tanya about the story of the house on the island, Isobella, as the owner couldn't and wouldn't sell her house until one day they found her body at the bottom of the ocean by the rocks. Yes, that moment there, I think, is definitely going to have a callback later in the season. Now, I don't know if that's going to be Tanya is going to have that call back, Portia, Lucia, Mia, maybe Albie, maybe Harper, but I don't think it's a coincidence that they talk about this not urban legend, but what happened to this house. I believe that one of our characters will have a similar fate to what happened to that owner house. Let me know if you all are thinking about the same thing. But we have our couples who are finally reunited. Immediately, the girl code is broken as Harper tells her husband everything that went down last night, including Cameron cheating, how she believes Daphne is cheating, and how their relationship is better. It's just like, Harper, you might think your relationship is better, but you guys have no communication. Your husband doesn't even want to have sex with you on this beautiful vacation. So, yeah, it's more than meets the eye with those two. But again, Harper is the first one to break the girl code there. But she's telling him this, and as she's doing so, Ethan goes to the bathroom, which leaves her to discovering an open condom in the couch, and she crushes it and puts it in her hand, and she's at a loss for words. She gets up, she's holding her stomach. I was at a loss for words because I'm just like, oh, I couldn't imagine, obviously being married on this beautiful vacation, you think in your head that your relationship's good and strong as Teflon, only to find a condom in your room, mind you. Man, like I said, my stomach dropped at that moment. Let me know how you all felt about it. But again, I just can't wrap my mind around why Harper doesn't check him, why she doesn't, and not even like in a passive aggressive way, just be like, what is this, right? And just see what comes of it. I'm sure at this point in the relationship, she can tell when Ethan's lying. He doesn't seem to be a good liar, even though he's sticking to bro code so far. But I'm just so curious on why. And I guess she's so judgmental. She seems to be a person that speaks her mind, but I guess it was just so shocking. And I think it's safe to assume that she thinks that it was Ethan that slept with, that used this condom versus it being obviously Cameron. So, let me know how you all felt about that. But seriously, my stomach dropped at that moment. I was just shocked that she didn't say anything and approach him about finding this condom. But as we go into feeling bad here, let's talk about Albie, y'all, especially when we see Lucia and Mia arrive, and he's just being a nice guy. As I've mentioned, he's like, oh, I'm saving a chair for my friend. She's not here yet. Let me know in the comments, do you feel bad for Albie? And if you do, why? And if you don't, and I understand if you don't, why? Because listen, Albie, no offense, I consider myself a good guy, and I hope that we all can finish at a good place for everyone across the world. But should we feel bad for him? Because listen, technically they're not dating. Albie, this isn't your girlfriend. You're just on vacation. She doesn't have to tell you what she's doing, who she's doing it with, so on and so forth. So no right or wrong answers, but do you feel bad for Albie? If so, why? And then if you don't feel bad, if so, why? And to put it back on this camp on if you feel bad for him, which again, I can understand it on both sides of the spectrum because I don't want to say she's leading him on, but I mean, you made out with the kid. You want to hang out with the kid. I mean, it's like, okay, let's see where this goes on this vacation that we're on. But at the same vein, you're not in a relationship. So let's have those conversations in the comment section as we see him get the courage to approach Portia and Jack. And we see this very awkward conversation as she invites him to hanging out later. And she's saying that Tanya is going to have more minutes here and all that stuff. And then the dad walks up as far as Dom and Bert, like, hey, son, we have our table. I feel so awkward at that moment. More for my boy, Albie. I'm Team Albie over here, y'all. Like I said, regardless of if he should feel bad or feel bad for him, it is kind of, I guess, rude is the way how she's handling this. Like, she should have just told Jack, hey, Jack, I did have plans with him. And even if she didn't want to spend time with Albie, she just handled it wrong, in my opinion. Again, I don't feel like she has to be like, oh, I have to hang out with him or I have to do this. But at least do it in a way where you don't make people feel bad about themselves. But I could be wrong because, again, like I said, they're not in a relationship. But it's just proper etiquette. I don't know. Let me know what you guys thought about how she handled that, and if it could have been handled a little bit differently. But she is, again, she's all hots for this dude. She's head over heels, and we'll talk about the decision she makes a little bit later. But hey, she's on vacation, man. She's a young girl. She can have fun. I'm torn right now. But switching over to Dom, who shows off the jewelry that he's buying his ex-wife, who, again, if we get Laura Dern, I would love that cameo. But he shows Albie. He's not impressed. He's like, Dad, you can't just buy back mom's love. You got to actually work for it. And he's just like, well, son, I was hoping that maybe you would want to get our family back together, but I guess I was wrong. Like, come on, Dom, you can't be using. And again, out of this entire episode, the person I felt for the most, as far as just like feeling like, yeah, come on, man, go hook up with Lucia, Albie, make her feel jealous, was Albie, man. It just, the way that the show framed all the stuff taking place, I feel bad for the kid, especially when his dad is now manipulating him. And let me know what you all thought about that. And if you think Dom will win back his wife, let's have those conversations. But going back to the couples who are now arriving to this lunch, and we see a huge difference between the couples. Cam and Daphne have been playing these mental games with each other for years, right? Meanwhile, we see how uncomfortable Harper is. Ethan's uncomfortable too. He knows that something's off, but their relationship, again, they don't speak. They don't have communication. And again, you can see Harper just wants to burst. She just wants to just let it all out. And I just wanted her to let it all out at that moment. But she reserved herself. She kept it inside. But I don't think that's a good thing. I think the way that she is going to probably let it out might result to someone being hurt. We'll see what comes of that. But the tables have now turned, as Lucia clearly isn't enjoying recent events and maybe wants to find a way out of this lifestyle. Meanwhile, Mia seems to be embracing this lifestyle and comes up with the brilliant idea that, you know, if I want to get what I want in life, I got to go for it. And I'm going to sleep with the piano guy, which does not turn out well. But Lucia notices she's created a monster. She's kind of worn off of Mia. Y'all remember Mia from season 1, episode 1 of the show? She didn't like shun or make fun of Lucia's lifestyle, but she's like, no, I don't want to, have sex. I don't want to do this. I just want to be a singer. She just broke up with her boyfriend recently. So, man, the tables have turned. Yes, indeed. As we see, Lucia doesn't like this idea, as Mia is set on this plan and doing it right now. I'm going to be honest with you all. I am loving the drama right now that we're going to talk about in this scene, but I know it's not going to end well, as we see Lucia makes her way back to Albie, who was like, oh, your friend didn't show up. Can I hang out? And I'm like, no, Albie, this is, you're repeating the history, my friend. Not that Lucia is a bad person. I told y'all last week she's one of my favorite characters, but we know how she likes to enjoy herself might be the same as Albie. It might not end well, but it does end well a little bit later in the episode. But I'm just like, it's not a good sign, my friend. Just to say no, you're not interested. But hey, you got to have fun on this vacation. As Bert, and we see, I can't wait to talk about Bert's reaction, the quote that he mentions later. But we're going into this creating a monster moment here, as she finds the piano man, I'm referring to Mia here, and she is ready to have sex with him. And they decide to have sex in a church. And to make the matters worse, piano man can't hit the right notes. He can't finish, and this is where Mia comes up with the brilliant idea to, Viagra, Lucia, she has Viagra. Let me go get the. I'm not gonna lie, the way that they pose all that, it just seemed a little bit too far-fetched as far as how it plays out. She goes and finds Lucia's bag, and she has the 2 containers of, I believe she said it was Molly and Viagra, which we find out that wasn't Viagra. She has the 2 pills. She looks for her on the beach. She ultimately finds her, and this is what I meant. It was just like, this is just TV writing, as far as just like, come on, y'all could have did a little bit better. When she's like yelling like, hey, which one is it? Which one is Viagra? And Lucia's like, I can't hear you. Like, Lucia, get your ass out of the water. Come to me. I'm talking to you. Or the other way around. She could have walked closer to her if you couldn't hear me. But again, TV, and it created this sense of what's going to happen next. But I would have just rathered her pick the pills and then just go without meeting Lucia, because I thought that was just kind of silly how they handled that. But neither here nor there. She goes back to Piano Man, gives him the Viagra, or at least she thinks it's Viagra, and we don't see him finishing, but we assume that he did finish. But before we even get to our nighttime scenes, Can I point out this scene here, as you all can see on the screen now? They have this conversation between them first and foremost about how men having power, and if it wasn't this way, women like Mia wouldn't be able to skip the line, which I found to be very fascinating between those two. But more importantly, looking at this shot of the sun shining on Mia but not on him, which to me is a huge symbol of she's gonna probably be okay for right now, while he's doomed. And we'll talk about what happens to the piano man a little bit later, but I love that shot there. Just kind of a way to frame something that's going to happen a little bit later in the episode, which it appears that they have finished the deed, but again, piano man isn't feeling well, and we see, and I just kind of knew this was coming, oh, are you going to introduce me to your friends? No, we'll do it later. Like, you knew that was going to happen, Mia. Like, that was just kind of like silly on her end, very shortcomings on her thought process. But back with our couples, we see small talk going on, and we have Harper who just wanders off to the edge of a dock, and she almost looks like she wants to jump, which again could be more foreshadowing of her being on the edge of her relationship and just wondering, did my husband, who I trusted, who I love, did he cheat on me and I can't communicate with him? So I love that shot. And again, I don't know if that means that's going to be something that we can see her doing again later in the season, or her pushing, not herself physically off the edge, but her pushing herself to suppressing her anger and the truth that she wants from her husband, and maybe having it lash out in a very violent way. We'll see what comes of that. But as we get to our nighttime scenes, Harper finally questions what happened, but she dances around the real question as we see Cameron and Daphne arrive, and she's just like, okay, yeah, it's time to go eat. It's just like, help me out in the comments, y'all. Why didn't she just ask him the question? But we go to dinner, and we now see Tanya tells Portia that she believes that she can have more fun, or women can have more fun with gay men as they can with women, which, listen, I don't have a dog in that fight. For all my audience members watching us right now, people of the community, do you feel like she's speaking some truth? Do you, or ladies out there, do you have gay friends that are male that you feel like you can have a better time with than your straight female friends? Let me know in the comments below. But as we pivot over to Mr. Albie, who's on a date with a very special lady, we see that Mr. Piano Man is sweating bullets, and eventually he passes out. Now, I don't know if he's dead. I don't know if he's having a heart attack, which I'm assuming he is, because I don't know what pills he took from Mia. But we see that again, my man Albie is having his special date, which we see Bert's like, oh son, that's the date. And I love the line that he says to Dom.
Like father, like son.
Meanwhile, we check in with Valentina, who has went as far as gifting Isabella something special from the store she mentioned earlier in the episode, as we see the ambulance arriving, interrupting this very maybe intimate moment. Again, do you all think that Valentina has feelings for Isabella, and do you think that she's going to let those feelings out, and if it will be reciprocated from Isabella? Let's talk about that in the comment section as we wrap up the episode with Portia and Albie having this new friendship standoff moment where Lucia takes it upon herself to kiss Albie to one up Portia, who's making out with Jack, but then they end up leaving and going to the bedroom. But Lucia, man, she's like, hey, let's have some fun, young man. And speaking of fun, we pivot over to a moment here with Harper questioning her husband yet again. And we have the moment that I kind of predicted last week in regards to why they're on this vacation.
At some point, he is going to approach you with some kind of money-making scheme or some kind of favor or something. There's a reason they invited us here.
We see Ethan tell her the only reason we're here is because he wants to make me a new client, but that's not what she was talking about, right? And she doesn't say anything, but she does leave that condom on the counter in the bathroom, so maybe he'll find it, and I don't know if he'll throw it away or if he'll be like, he'll just address the situation. Very curious to see what happens there. As we see, Portia, meanwhile, is getting laid. Meanwhile, Albie and Lucia are sharing a very intimate moment with each other. Shout out to my boy Albie getting his payback in a sense, as we end with the shot behind him of a man with arrows on his chest. So are those arrows indicating that our boy will be punished? Because let's call it what it is. Lucia's my homie, but Lucia, if it wasn't for Lucia, that wouldn't have happened to the piano man, right? A domino effect. So who's that guy on that painting? Is it Albie? Is it Dom? Is it Bert? Is it Cameron? Is it Ethan? Or is it one of our other characters? Let me know your thoughts on that. So overall, like I said, this was an entertaining episode as regarding the tea and characters lying and characters doing things that are out of character, which we saw my boy you know, having some intimate moments with Lucia and Portia doing exactly what she wanted to do since episode 1, which is just having fun and being young and not being in a committed relationship. Meanwhile, we see Mia going down this path of having sex with a piano man to get what she wants, ultimately leading to him potentially dying. And Valentina, she's looking for love. So again, there's interesting things that happen, but it just didn't have that kind of deeper, in-depth kind of substance as the previous episodes has. But again, I was entertained. I just wasn't as like, man, this is really, the writing's hitting on point, the deeper meanings are hitting on point. But hey, that's just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Pros, cons. Your thoughts on all the tea that went down, your predictions on all the different foreshadowing that we got in this episode. Let's have those conversations in the comments. I thank you for watching this review. Before you all leave, as you can see on the screen now, make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any of my content. Hit the button here, come and join the community, check out my other reviews for the White Lotus, check out my most recent review, and we'll catch you all on the next breakdown.